Good evening. This is Viewpoint. My name is Toya Singh. As you can possibly tell from the screen behind me, today we are looking at the issue of one nation, one poll. This afternoon, the Law Commission met to finalize its report on a highly contentious issue. This is an issue, remember, where we've seen much debate, much back and forth over the last few years. Now, one nation, one poll, essentially state and national level elections taking place at the same time. We've heard regional parties in particular come out vociferously against this idea. They've said that such an idea would put any national party to great advantage. Now, this afternoon, our reporters told us that the Law Commission, in their meeting, declared that they were close to submitting a final report and that they are very much in favor of the idea of implementing this across the country. Now, the time the Law Commission is right now taking is just to discuss what kind of constitutional amendments will be needed to make this a reality. Tonight, we're going to be taking a look on Viewpoint. We're going to be trying to understand every perspective on this issue. One nation, one poll. Is it actually feasible? Let's take a look.
Now this commission will definitely look after the issue of one nation, one election, because multiple election involve lots of money, and because every time India is in election mode, development suffered a lot.
All right, let's go over first to all of our panelists for today. I'm going to introduce you to them and then we're going to go over to them with questions. First, we have Siddharth Yadav. He's a spokesperson for the BJP. Now, we also have Chaitanya Singh, a spokesperson for the NCP, but it's important to point out the Ajit Pawar-led faction that has just joined hands with the BJP. We also have Salim Dharanidharan, a spokesperson for the DMK. Good evening, gentlemen, to all of you. Thank you for joining us here on CNN News 18. I want to take our first question actually to the DMK spokesperson. So, Salim Dharanidharan, sir, I'm going to come over to you first with a question. So, I'm coming to you first to ask you our opening question, because today what we learned from the Law Commission was that while it was seemingly in favor of one nation, one poll, they are going to take a few more days, a few more meetings to understand how to do this constitutionally. Because as expert after expert has already pointed out, this is going to need at least 5 constitutional amendments. Sir, I want to ask you, one of the major apprehensions of the opposition has always been this takes too many changes to the constitution, to the fundamental structure of the country. Sir, I want to ask you, since the Law Commission is saying we're going to take care of that, we're going to look to do it in a proper manner, does that in any way comfort the fears of the DMK?
See, the primary question is, why we are opposing this is that one nation, one election is an horrendous idea. It's a tyranny of democracy. It paves way for toppling of state governments, so on and so forth. Since independence, I think from 1950s until 67 or 65, we've been having parallel elections for state governments as well as for the union government. Why was this practice stopped? Only because some state governments lost confidence, some state governments were toppled, so that required elections, interim elections, right? So now what happens? Let's say you have one election for all the state governments as well as for the union government. After a year, let's say the union government loses confidence. So are you going to conduct elections for all the states together? Then what happens to the regional parties that are voted by the people? What happens to the 5-year mandate? Or let me go and say that after 2 years, let's say a non-BJP ruled state government is toppled. So what happens for the remaining 3 years? Will you have elections? Or will you, in the back door, allow the president to rule? Again, it's a tyranny of democracy. We have seen in the last 8-9 years under BJP how many non-BJP ruled governments have been toppled, right? We have, the opposition, the India Alliance is a victim of that. So many of our alliance partners, governments have been toppled. So you will topple the government and then president will rule from the back door. So this is why we are opposing this idea. So whatever Law Commission says, again, it's cumbersome, it requires time. But even having said all that, our fact is that this is against the concept principles of democracy. this goes against the wishes of the people of India, because state governments, right, they are important. Health, education, those are concurrent list. People depend on the state government for most of the services, right? And when you have both these elections together, what actually happens is that party which has a lot of resources, in this case BJP, gains to win because they can go and campaign all over the country. And apart from that, the elections and research, I've also studied a lot of research papers on this subject. In Italy also, in several countries in Europe also try to do the same. And then the research clearly says, when you have election for, let's say, for a union government as well as for state government together, election which is more salient gets prominence, which means that
Correct.
In this case, national issues, not the local issues. So the issues of the people of a particular state tend to get ignored. So these are the issues. So when this system is functioning really well, why do you want to bring this one nation, one election? What is this thing with this oneness with everything,
So
one language, one culture?
let me just take a question to you, and then I want to go over to the other panelists that are with us. Sir, sometimes experts point to examples like Andhra Pradesh, Orissa, examples where elections in the state and national elections have taken place at the same time, and you've still had state parties win, to counter the point that you just made. So to that, what would you argue?
No, see, some state elections have been happening parallelly. I understand that. But what we are trying to say is, this is not feasible. What happens, let's say, after 3.5 years, a state government loses confidence. So 1.5 years, will you have president's rule? Or will you have an election? But again, if you have an election for 1.5 years, then again this loss to the exchequer, state exchequer.
Sir, I totally agree that those are very, very important questions. Correct. So just stay with us for a second. I want to now go over to the other panelists that we have with us right now. I want to go over to Chaitanya Singh. Mr. Singh, I'm coming over to you because you represent a regional party, but your party is one that has joined hands with the BJP. Giving our audiences that context, I now want to take to you the question. The DMK spokesperson had brought up that one of the key issues with ONOP is this idea that the federal structure of the country will essentially get lost. The federal structure was one that was put forth to counter any kind of concentration of power taking place in the center. And now by introducing this, you're essentially giving a huge leg up. And, the DMK is correct when they say this. There are a number of statistics that show that when elections take place, unfortunately, especially if you've got a party as big as the BJP or the Congress, they are going to have the might of numbers, the might of their national budgets to support them even in state elections. So to that, what do you have to say?
Look, my friend has, like my friend from DMK was rightly saying, the first 4 elections, 51, 52, 57, 62 and 67, were held simultaneously. All the state assemblies and the Lok Sabha went to elections together. Post that, due to some hung assemblies, etc., the practice of simultaneous elections was not able to be continued. Does one nation, one election implementation of the same have a lot of challenges? Yes, it does. But the benefits of the one nation, one elections far outweigh the challenges, the issues, the problems that come along with it. Approximately 60,000 crore rupees was spent in the 2019 elections alone. Just imagine the kind of money that is being spent on elections alone. What if this money could be used for the benefit of people at large? A lot of schemes, etc., could be passed. If a pill is bitter, that does not mean that we're not going to swallow it.
Okay,
yes, we also...
Sir, one second. I want you to answer, sir, specifically that question of disadvantage to regional parties, because you do come from a regional party, sir. I want you to tell me.
I personally don't think that there is going to be any disadvantage as such. Yes, we are of the party, the senior leaders of the party have always maintained the stand that all the stakeholders must be taken into consideration. It does require 5 constitutional amendments. The Law Commission in its report in 2019 has itself said that it will be require the ratification of at least 50% of the states. So all that is there. But as I said, and I'm repeating myself again, the benefits of one nation, one election far outweigh the challenges.
Sir, I just want to take it back to that point. When you're going to have national party budgets going up against state parties, is your party not at all worried about that?
The party is only interested in the welfare of Maharashtra, welfare of the people of Maharashtra, and welfare of the people of this country.
Okay.
And whatever challenges that may come in their way, they will overcome it. Like I said earlier, there are challenges. Everybody is denying that there are challenges. there are several stakeholders. There are 29 states.
Right.
There are several parties. Everybody has to be taken into consideration, and their thoughts, their whatever the issues that they want to put forth, they have to be taken into consideration.
Okay.
But yeah, but in the interest of the nation, because as you know yourself, you're a journalist. We are always into election mode. Every year there is some.
Okay, Mr. Singh, just stay with us because you've raised some points that I do want to take. Let me just inform our audiences, we have had the Congress join us. Meeta Chakraborty, a spokesperson for the Congress, has just joined us. Good evening, ma'am. Thank you for joining us here. Ma'am, we'll come to you with a question in just a second. I want to go over to the BJP since we haven't had a chance to do that yet. Siddharth Yadav, a spokesperson for the BJP, is with us right now. Sir, I want to ask you, when the Law Commission in 2018 took a look at this issue, and further when you've had the Chief Election Commissioner at the time, so this is Sunil Arora at the time, both the Law Commission, Sunil Arora, both of them have said one very important thing, that in implementing this, it's very important to get all parties onto the table, to have everyone in consensus. So one criticism of the way in which the BJP has gone about this in the past, I'm not talking about the Law Commission right now, is the argument that has come up against the BJP, which is that it's not bringing all the parties on the table. It's not getting key opposition parties in consensus when it comes to this. Mr. Yadav, what would you have to say to that?
Yeah, thank you for having me here. I'll respond to the questions that were raised by my fellow panelists and also to the very important question that you have just raised. I'll begin with answering your question. When it comes down to consultation, definitely whatever is happening right now is a consultation process only. We introduced the idea long back. Honorable Prime Minister mentioned it on various forums. After that, a lot of webinars, a lot of consultation with the people were happening. Among political parties also, it was a point of discussion. We formed a committee. We invited the leader of opposition. He is not joining. Not our fault. It is for the participatory democracy an important aspect for the opposition to join any discourse which is for the greater good of the country and forget politics in such matters. But time and again we have seen that the opposition parties bring politics above the nation's good and they indulge in such activities. But I'll also answer to my other fellow panelists that were saying. My friend from DMK, I thought was giving a lot of naive arguments. Definitely all provisions will be made. What if any state assembly goes a hung assembly in the middle, if the government goes down, what will happen? This is a very common question. That is what for all the experts, for all the committees are going to discuss. You can give in your ideas. This is not something for any party, not for politics. This is something for the country. If something is happening for the greater good of the country, all of us should come together and participate. And when it comes down to regional parties, I don't think they can be either arguments on both sides. I don't think they're going to be at loss. If DMK has to fight only in Tamil Nadu, if the elections are happening all over the country, then definitely national parties will have their focus diverted to all states. But DMK can only focus to Tamil Nadu and definitely gain more. We can have all sorts of arguments in such cases. So I don't think we should just just to oppose something, we should not bring up some arguments. Also, I take strong objection when opposition parties or any party belittles the intelligence of the voters of our country. We should not do it. We have seen in the past when the Lok Sabha elections and Vidhan Sabha elections happened together, the voters have chosen leaders differently from different parties. It happened in Orissa last year. We should not belittle what the country voters have the capacity, their intelligence. They can definitely choose who they want in the center, who they want in the state. Okay. So we should come up from that mentality and think more for the country. I think the only problem, my last point would be, is the politics. The politics of unnatural alliances which have come together. Now they know the unnatural alliance which is fighting differently in Vidhan Sabha, fighting together in Lok Sabha, fighting as far as possible that they can. I think they are going to be at loss. Definitely it is something for the greater good of the country. We should forget politics in such matters. If something is happening which will change how the spending of this country, how the governance of this country is going to go in the future, all of us should come together on the same boat and contribute.
Mr. Yadav, let me just stop you. I want to ask you a quick counter question, then I need to go over to our other panelists. Let me ask you a quick follow-up question here. You talked right now of opposition leaders. In particular, you were talking about a Congress leader. You were saying that, look, we did give them the invite to join our panel. They themselves chose not to join that panel. You can't blame us for that. Sir, I want to ask you though there that the Congress leader that you're talking about, he gave a statement to the media where he said that the process with which the BJP is doing this is an eyewash. So he criticized the method in which he said the BJP was going about doing this. He said that essentially if you're going to stack the odds in the BJP's favor, then this isn't a fair process. To that, sir, what would you and the BJP have to say?
See, look, I don't know where this comes from, but how would he know the process? How would he know it's an eyewash if he doesn't join it? If he doesn't join the process, how does he know? It is just the fear mongering that is happening. And it is not just this issue. It's on every issue that the opposition comes up and does the fear mongering. They were, the member we are discussing who left the committee, he was very confident that in the special session, one nation, one election is going to come. We never said so. It did not come. It is for a longer deliberation. We invited him for a longer deliberation for him to come and join and actually contribute in the plan that should be put to action. But he did not. And any such fear mongering for the nation's cause, I think, should not come up.
Okay, all right. So stay with us. Let's now go to Meeta Chakraborty. She's a spokesperson for the Congress. Ma'am, obviously I'd like to ask you to respond to all that it is the BJP has said right now. But before we even go to that, ma'am, I'd actually like to ask you to respond to the key criticism that has come in. So the key criticism of the current process is one in which we say that, look, parties are having to spend too much money and this process will simplify that. There'll just be much less money that is spent, and that in itself is enough reason to introduce that. Ma'am, could you respond to that, because it's a key economic argument, and then we'll go further to all of the BJP's arguments.
Good evening to all your viewers and good evening to the fellow panelists as well. Firstly, this one nation, one election is not a new concept.
Right.
Ever since the country became an independent nation in the 50s till about 1960s, we used to have this one nation, one poll. So it's not a new concept that BJP, the current government of the day, has come up with. Secondly, why did we have to delay state elections from general national elections? There was a reason, because the state government there were multiple state governments which got dismissed or which failed its majority, and hence they had to had earlier state elections or midterm polls and had to be delayed from the general election process. So my first query is that in this one nation, one poll, and yes, there are certain advantages on paper which we cannot deny, but what will happen when a state government gets dismissed or it loses its majority if it's an alliance government and the alliance partner decides to break away, or there is a section that breaks away from the government of the day? What happens? Does the minority government keep limping for the remaining period? Or do we have president rule in those states waiting for a fixed term assembly? So what happens in those states? And are we being fair to the electorate of the state? Because are we not really taking away the right from the voters to vote and elect a government? So for example, there is a government in Karnataka, and within a year, if you're asking them, if you're either imposing president rule, or if anything has happened and we are asking a minority government to continue for the remaining 4 years, then how is that fair to the voters and the electorate of Karnataka? My first point. So how are we really going to implement it? Number two, when you have, in India is a multi-party democratic system, right? India we have a federal structure here, it's a union of states, and we enjoy unity in diversity. So my second point is that when you have state elections and general elections happening at different times, are we not giving the voters of the state a chance to give a midterm feedback? We have seen, I'm from the state of West Bengal, and we have seen people voting differently in state elections as well as in general election. And sometimes it's good, because if you just give power to people for uninterrupted period of 5 years, and there is no feedback mechanism, even the state governments, and I'm not only talking about the central government here or the national parties here, even a regional state government can be very arrogant, very well assured in their position of power, because they know that they have a fixed term for 5 years. By having a midterm state election or a midterm general election, the voters are giving you a message back that there are areas where we are not happy with your performance. It applies to all political parties, regional as well as national political party. Number three, I'll give you an international example here. In 2010, in UK, had passed a resolution to have a fixed term parliament, right? It's a very similar system to India, but they decided that they're going to have a fixed term parliament, and the prime minister's right to call for early election was taken away. 8 to 9 years later, and I think it was in 2018 or 2019, they had to revoke that system because they found that the new system to be completely devoid of any flexibility. So this kind of systems have been practiced abroad in different stations,
Ma'am,
in different countries.
I do need to go over to the other panelists. So I will very quickly ask you to touch on the question I asked you right in the beginning, which is to the argument that, look, we're saving money for every party in the nation, regional or national. To that argument, ma'am, what would you have to say?
So in a country of India's size, of India's economy, we have to make a very informed decision as how much exactly are we saving, and are the benefits really adding up? Also, the logistic issues. We have to have if you're going to have local body elections as well, we are going to have 3 times the number of EVMs. We have to then also educate the people. So there is additional cost there. So how are we going to address the logistic issues? How are we going to address situations where the state government may get dismissed and may not be able to fulfill their term? So how are we really going to implement it? It's not going to be an easy implementation. Okay. So yes, while we are open for conversation, it is not something that can be easily implemented, and there's a reason why state elections in past were delayed.
Ma'am, let me just quickly ask you one more question here. I'm sorry to keep the other panelists waiting, but ma'am, one of the very important things the BJP pointed out here was that the Congress leader that was invited to take part in this panel said that he didn't want to because he said that it was an eyewash. Now, ma'am, the point the BJP is making is, look, we're inviting you, you're not participating. What is the kind of process that the Congress would be open to? Could you lay that out for us?
Absolutely, and I'm glad you asked me that. We are a multi-party system. In Indian democracy is a multi-party system. Where was the representation from regional parties? Where are the state governments? And so many state governments are being led by regional parties. Where were their representatives being invited? Just inviting one person, the leader of Lok Sabha from Congress, will not suffice. What about the regional party representation? What about the state government representation? If you have to really do this, and if it's just not a bubble, if you're really going to have a serious conversation, then invite all stakeholders. And when you invite all stakeholders, there will be Congress representative coming as well. But if you're just going to do an eyewash, and if you're not going to invite the regional parties, who are very important stakeholders, then there's no reason for us to send our representative either.
All right, so a poignant point. I'm just going to go over to the BJP in a second, but here I think it's going to be particularly interesting to hear what Chaitanya Singh, spokesperson for the NCP Jeet Pawar faction, has to say. Sir, what would your response be to that? Having a panel, having conversations that involve regional parties like yours?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. Could you please repeat your question?
Yes, Mr. Singh, I want to ask you, what is your response to what the Congress just said, that they will participate in such conversations if regional parties like yours, like the DMK, are invited to the conversation table?
We have the party, the senior leaders, and the whole rank and file of the party has already maintained this position that it is extremely crucial to take into consideration the views of all parties.
Right.
So, yeah, and of all other stakeholders as well. It's not just political parties. There's ECI, there's bureaucrats, there's academicians, there's legal luminaries. Everybody's views must be taken into consideration because there are some serious issues which my fellow panelists have brought forward, which are already in public domain also.
Correct.
So, of course, it's extremely crucial that all parties are also consulted, and all other stakeholders are also consulted, for which these commissions and these committees have been formed. So, I think the Law Commission is going to come out with a report. The Law Commission has previously also in its earlier reports also suggested that we must move to that system. The Election Commission of India itself, in its report in its annual report of 1983, has suggested that it would be crucial for this country to go back to the system of having simultaneous elections. So all that we are trying to say is that we are all for the idea. The party is all for this concept of one nation, one election, provided everybody is consulted and there is consensus.
Okay, but sir, I just want to ask you, you said right now in your response that you did have faith in the current system. But if we take a look at the panel that was announced by the government...
No. We have full faith in the Union of India, the government of
But
India.
sir, you said that the panel, one second, you said that you had full faith that it did represent already the views of regional parties. But if you take a look at who's on that panel, apart from Ghulam Nabi Azad, who of course is a senior leader from Jammu and Kashmir, who else do you think is a representative of a regional party, sir, when you say that?
This discussion is premature because nothing has happened till now. I'm sure the government of India is going to take views. The election commission will take views. The election commission, the law commission has put a notification for public to give their views, let alone parties and other stakeholders. So saying something like that is, and actually having this question or having this discussion at this time is premature. The law, it's in public domain. The law commission has put out a notification. They have invited views of all stakeholders.
Correct.
It's not just...
All right. So, Mr. Singh, just stay with us. Let's go over now to Salem Dharanidharan, who was with us. He actually gave us our first response here. He's the spokesperson from a regional party, from the DMK. Mr. Dharanidharan, I want to come to you now to ask you, when we've heard from the BJP, when we've heard from the NCP, Ajit Pawar faction, the answer is similar in one regard. Both of them are saying, wait. They're saying, look, we're going to put the processes in place, wait, we are going to get all the stakeholders on the table. What the BJP spokesperson also pointed out is that, look, we aren't looking to do this in a hurry. We are going to take our time. Look, we didn't go and have the special session on this issue. That's a clear indication that we aren't trying to spook any of the involved parties. Now, Mr. Dharanidharan, what is your perspective on that? That's one. And number two, Mr. Dharanidharan, the Law Commission is saying they're going to figure out how to do this properly. They're going to take their time. They're going to have several more meetings. So what is your perspective on all of these developments, on what the BJP, what the NCP, Ajit Pawar's faction is saying?
See, I think we all have limited time, and more so in a government space, I think the time is very limited and we have so much to do. I think we must focus on things that make sense, and I think deliberating these issues makes no sense, because this is a horrendous idea. This is absolutely a bad idea. See, even a country like Germany, right, homogeneous in comparison to India, 8 crore population, which is nearly 20 times lesser than Indian population, has states, and the states should conduct their own election. They have their own election commission. They conduct their own election, and in fact, the duration, for example, of like Munich is 5 years. The term for the state government, state Bundesland, Munich is 5 years, and for Berlin is 4 years. So we have that much federalism in a homogeneous country like Germany, right? India is nearly 20 times bigger, 140 crore people, 100 different languages, 100 different cultures. Why do you want to have one election, right? Go for more federalism.
Okay, Mr. Dharanidharan, let me just ask you. I know. One second, sir. You in the beginning. No. I am going to come back to you only. In the beginning, you had said that this is a horrendous idea. You are continuing to say that. Sir, I'm asking you though that if this were done in a manner that took regional parties like the DMK into consideration, which the BJP is saying could potentially happen. They're saying they're not in any hurry. Is there a way in which the DMK would be on board to do this potentially?
When the idea itself is again is going to reduce democracy, then why will you want to be a part of it, right? See, the decision will be taken by the leader, but what I'm trying to say is, this idea itself is less democracy. Why do you have elections? See, elections cost money. Why do you have elections? Why does countries have elections, right? Why does every democratic have election? Because democracy is good. So for any expenditure, you have to make cost-benefit analysis, right? You can't say, okay, the cost is 60,000 crores, so we want to reduce the cost, so we'll have one election. Then next you will come and say, let's not have election, it's costing 30,000 crores. Why have elections? But again, I read this interesting editorial in The Hindu, which actually made a lot of sense economically also. When you spend for elections, you think that the money goes away. But actually, economic research also says election expenditure propels the economy, because there are other aspects involved in it, right?
Right.
Like transportation, etc. The whole economy gets propelled. So it's like pumping money into the economy. So you can't say the money just completely disappears. And again, having said that, 140 crore people, even for several states, the election goes on in 5 or 6 phases, certain sensitive states. So how can you have election for one country for like state, union at one go? I don't think so. I think how many phases will you have? What resources you need?
Mr. Dharanidharan, one sec. Let me just now go to the spokesperson of the BJP. Mr. Yadav, we've heard from the Congress, we've heard from the DMK. These are the two opposition parties that are with us today. Sir, this is very clearly not the vision that the Law Commission, at least in 2018, or Sunil Arora, the CEC, the Chief Election Commissioner, had suggested. He'd said, and we talked about this a little earlier on the show, that all parties, opposition parties especially, need to be brought onto the table. There needs to be some kind of consensus. So what is the BJP going to be doing in the next few months, perhaps in the next few years, as you're suggesting, to bring about that kind of consensus?
Yeah, I'll answer all the questions that were raised by my fellow panelists. I feel what my friend from Congress was saying, instability in the system cannot be a solution for accountability. That is for sure. We can't say that we have to keep the system unstable. We have to have elections again and again so that the political parties are accountable. Definitely not. Don't we think that policy paralysis is actually an issue in our country? It actually is. For so many months in so many states, no governance can happen because the elections are declared, because of the model code of conduct. We are a progressing country. We have a vision for our country. 2047, we are aiming for a developed India. Before 2029, we're aiming for the third largest economy. That can't happen with all such things. So I think I'll again request my fellow panelists, we should come above politics for all of this. And definitely we were speaking about UK, we were giving examples of Germany. I think the time is gone when UK, US, Germany could be the benchmarks for India.
Okay.
We are the new
Mr. Yadav,
benchmark.
I'm sorry to cut you off.
The world is looking at us for newer solutions, for global problems.
Sir, but I do need to understand from you. Meeta Chakraborty from the Congress had raised this point, and I want us to go to it because we are running out of time here. She had said we would be agreeing to join you on the table if you invited regional parties. You didn't do that. Now, so what is the BJP's answer to that? Is there further plans perhaps in the docs to do this?
Yeah, definitely, Toya. We never said that the panel that we made was the conclusive one. We never said that it's the last one. Consultations have been happening. My friend from the Ajit Kumar Sir fraction was adding to it. The consultation is happening with the general public, let alone the political parties. And we were all told that India Alliance is all together. They are one people. They sleep together, eat together, join together, shout together. If Adhir Ranjanji was there, he could have represented everybody. And this panel is not the conclusive one. Consultations will happen. But I'll also respond to what my friend from DMK was saying. If money, yes, definitely we should focus on important things. Money is being propelled in the economy and all of that he was saying. If important things have to be focused upon, then stop commenting on corruption or stop commenting on Sanatan to save yourself from the corruption that you're doing in the state. Money is being propelled. We know what you do in elections, how TVs are distributed.
You can't give blatant.
It is time we go beyond that. Think for the country, think about the country, take decisions for the greater good of the country. That is what is more important.
CAG saying 7.5 lakh crores loss under Modi government.
Okay, let me go over very quickly to Meeta Chakraborty, the Congress spokesperson, for a response. Ma'am, we just heard from the BJP. Their key argument is, look, the process is not over. There is enough time to bring everyone on the table, regional parties included. Ma'am, could you answer to that? But also, I need you to tell us, ma'am, when we spoke to the DMK right now, their spokesperson who you could hear, they are very clearly against the idea altogether. Is it correct to say, though, that you differ? You seem to be suggesting that you are open to the idea if done correctly. Is that an accurate summary?
All I have said that there are serious challenges for its implementation. It is not a new concept. It has been tried before, and there's a reason why it got delayed in the first place. And I do not see any reason why those reasons will not again come about. Also, another very quick point: if you have a minority government limping for a long period, it will lead to serious horse trading. The minority government will try to buy support of other MLAs from the other political parties. It will only lead to more corruption.
Ma'am, why this fear mongering again? How do you know the situations are going to come up?
How
do you know the solution to this?
You have to give me uninterrupted time. You have to give me uninterrupted time.
Do go ahead, ma'am.
So it will only lead to more horse trading. It will only lead to more corruption. And we have some serious concerns. And yes, and we have not seen any bill. And bear in mind, even if this bill is introduced before 2024 in the current Lok Sabha, I find it very serious. I do not see it will get passed in Rajya Sabha. Even political organizations which have supported BJP in other bills, parties like BJD, for example, may not actually support this. So to get it implemented in the near future is not only something that they're not considering it for very right reasons, because I really do not see it happening in the near future. Now, having said that, if there is a consultation, that is, if something is proposed to us, we can react to it. Nothing has been proposed to us. There has been a committee that has been formed with no representative from regional parties, and Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary, our leader of the Lok Sabha and Congress party in Lok Sabha, was the only person invited, and we have very respectfully said that we are not going to be part of such a lopsided team because there is not enough representation from regional political parties, and the result is already given. What will come out of it? Congress party is always open to conversation, but we have certain very grave concerns which we are outlining it. And when the time comes, when something proper is placed on the table, which is not the current time, we will react on whatever is being placed on the table. There is no bill right now, and I doubt whether any bill will be proposed in the next in the next session either. I don't see this happening before 2024 general election, and I don't see such a bill getting passed, even if it gets passed.
All right, ma'am, but I do want to understand. I do want to double click on this.
1
second. I do want to double click, ma'am. Am I correct in summarizing that while I
want to give a quick rebuttal to that.
I'd like to ask you, sir, just to wait 1 second. Ma'am, am I correct in summarizing here that there does seem to be a gulf in what you and the DMK leader are saying, in that you are not entirely against it? You are saying you want to wait and see. The Congress wants to wait and see how this is done. They are open to participating in panels in the future.
We have grave concerns in the concept. We have pointed it out why logistically it can be very, very difficult to implement. We are not going to be part of any lopsided conversation.
Right.
Conversation is always good for any democracy. But that does not mean that we are supporting it or we are walking in support. There is, by the way, no bill at the present point in time. So there is no notion of supporting or opposing it.
All right, Ms. Chakraborty, just stay with us for a second. We've heard from the Congress and the DMK. Mr. Yadav, I'm actually going to ask you not to respond to that point because I want to ask you one key question before we close. Mr. Yadav, the key opposition that's been raised by the Congress, by the DMK here, is what happens to the government if midway through something takes place. Are we going to see President's rule? That'll have its own faults. Are we going to see a different party elected into power that only potentially has 3 years and doesn't even get a full term? What is the BJP's answer to that, sir, since that is perhaps the most crucial question here?
Absolutely. There are a lot of concerns when a new idea is proposed. If a new system is going to be brought in, definitely there are concerns that have to be catered to. There are a lot of solutions to the question that you just asked. I think if there would be no chance for governments to topple down and have midway elections, there would be lesser of horse trading. The governments would be more obliged to complete their full term rather than just indulge like what they did in Maharashtra. They fought with us, Shiv Sena fought with us, and then just left us because they thought that they had more seats. They could just form a government. So I think
I'm looking to understand.
It is for the panel to have. It is for the panel to come out with solutions. A more detailed proposal will come. The proposal will have all the solutions. I do not understand why, when the no plan is there on the table, why everybody is just jumping the gun and trying to oppose something which is for the greater good of the country. You can wait for the solutions to be laid. There is no hurry, but I think it is a new phenomenon for the opposition to just oppose whatever is being introduced. Anything that is good for the country, they just have to come and oppose. I think that attitude is not
the woman reservation bill.
Isn't it natural, sir, for opposition parties to ask you this question when they are worried about their own fate? Isn't it natural for a party to care for its own lifeline, sir?
No, absolutely they should, and that is why they should have some patience. They are responsible political parties which aim to represent the country and serve the people, right? If that is the priority, then they should definitely wait, because experts are working on the Law Commission is working, the Parliamentary Committee on Law and Justice had given their report, a high-level committee which the Congress boycotted, they're not part of, is thinking about all the aspects in which jurists are there, people with administrative experience, election experience, with experience from the government are there. So all this experience collectively will come out with a plan which is going to be laid for the country, for people to come and join the deliberations. If they decide today there is no deliberation they want to join, there is no suggestion they want to give, and they just want to oppose just for the sake of opposing, I again reiterate that attitude is not good for our country. That should be dropped right away.
Okay, sure. All right, Mr. Yadav, Siddharth Yadav, spokesperson spokesperson for the BJP, Meeta Chakraborty, spokesperson for the Congress, Chaitanya Singh, spokesperson for the NCP Ajit Pawar faction, and of course, Salim Dharanidharan from the DMK. I'd like to thank all of you for joining us. Very clearly, a gulf still remains between the opposition and the BJP and its allies on this pivotal issue. It's time for a short break. On the other side, more of the country's top stories, more looking at debates. We'll see you in just a few minutes. This is Viewpoint.
So I have to call them after this call, get connected and disconnected, and I have to call my family, or everybody will be waiting for this.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for speaking with us here on CNN News 18. Congratulations to you and to your entire team. We do hope to catch up with you and the team perhaps later in the day as well. But thank you so much for speaking with us here on CNN News 18. 2018, the Malayalam film is official entry of India to the Oscars. It was a 22 shortlisted movie list, out of which we now see 2018 as the chosen one. It is the chosen entry to the 2024 Oscar Awards. This is a film that is a survival drama. It talks about tales of despair, it talks about tales of hope and those of unsung heroes as far as the Kerala floods are concerned. Floods and stories that Kerala had not witnessed in decades together. All of that was brought from real to real, and that is going to be India's official entry to 2024 Oscar Awards. On that note, slipping into a quick break, back in just a few minutes. India's Oscar entry has now been announced. We're given to understand that Malayalam film 2018 is the official entry to the Oscars for 2024. That announcement has just come to the fore a short while ago. That press conference was happening even as we speak. Vishal Chatkara, my colleague, now joining us, getting us more details on this. Yes, Vishal.
Well, congratulations to everybody, because 2018 film that celebrates the spirit of people of Kerala has been chosen as India's Oscar entry. There was a lot of anticipation around other films, other Hindi films like the Kerala story, but the jury actually shortlisted 22 films, and out of that they watched each one of them, and there were a lot of hype around this, but this Tavino's Thomas starrer is the winner. It talks about people of Kerala who came together to help each other during the 2018 flood. It starred Tavino Thomas. Many congratulations to the director, to the team, and now all eyes at the Oscars, where the film will be competing in the official foreign language film category.
And Vishal, it wasn't just a critically acclaimed movie, it was also a commercially hit movie, isn't it? It was the highest grossing Malayalam film of all time, if I'm not mistaken.
No, the figure I'm not aware, but yes, it's a highly acclaimed film. It starred Tavino Thomas, and not just the film actors who spoke nicely about the film, but also actors like Dulquer Salmaan who spoke and complimented filmmakers and the people of Kerala, who repeatedly said, you know, how in 2018 the way they managed the floods, and it's a big win and a very apt choice for Indian filmer to be reflected at the Oscars.
Absolutely. Like you said, the shortlist was of 22 films, but this is the movie that has been chosen by the jury, by the panel that was looking into what India's official entry is going to be. 2018 is the Malayalam film that is going to be India's official entry into the foreign category. It is a survival drama, if we could say so, as far as the Kerala floods are concerned, of tales of despair, tales of hope, and the bravery that was shown by many. The unsung heroes really were what was celebrated in this movie, Vishal, isn't it?
Yes, truly. You know, I have to also speak about the other films which were doing the round. There's a film called Vati, which talks about, a debate over government-funded education. It's a Dhanush starrer against the private schools. That was also being talked about. Then there was a film called Bhagwan Bharose, that's the Srirajitya's directorial debut. That was in the running. I was talking to a couple of jury members before the big announcement. They were saying they're very particular. They don't want to repeat what happened last year at the Oscars. They got a lot of flack, I think, for sending. Or they were not a flack, but it was quite controversial when the Discovery decided to send Cello Show instead of RRR. So they really want to sit and select a film that reflects the true sense, the spirit of India to the Oscars.
Right, Vishal, thank you so much for getting us the latest on that. Neetu, my colleague, also joining us to get us more perspective on this. Neetu, we've been talking about India's official entry to the Oscars. This is a Malayalam film, one that is critically acclaimed, one that was commercially a hit as well. What are the kind of reactions that we are seeing? Have you had any word from the cast, the crew? Were they expecting this?
See, 2018 was a huge hit. It was a huge. It was a Malayalam film based on the 2018 floods that the state had witnessed. In 100 years, the state hadn't witnessed something like this. So this movie had all aspects of the 2018 floods. It was very well accepted commercially as well as critically. So we are yet to get word from the makers of the movie. But the news just coming in is that this has been selected as India's official entry into the Oscars.
It was a 17-member panel, Neetu, that decided on which film is going to make the cut. 2018 was chosen the winner. And in the past, we've seen several criticisms come to the fore as far as Oscar entries are concerned. But perhaps this is going to be either unanimous decision, so to say, or there are very little faults that are going to be found with this particular decision, don't you think?
Yes, that's what we think, because as I said, even when the movie released also, it was well received. There has been several criticism earlier related to the Oscar, the entries from the country, especially when it comes to
Welcome back. You're watching Viewpoint right here with us on CNN News 18. We're moving now from the debate we were taking place now to breaking news we've got regarding the CBI right here in Delhi. We're learning that they've registered a preliminary inquiry into the Arvind Kejriwal house renovation case. The CBI sources say that it's asked the Delhi government's PWD, that's the Public Works Department, to submit all documents pertaining to the renovations of the Chief Minister's residence. You remember a controversy had erupted earlier this year after the Chief Minister was accused by the BJP of spending around 45 crores on the beautification of his official Delhi Civil Lines residence. And my colleague Arunima is with us to bring us some more context on the CBI's directives. Let's take a look. Arunima, over to you.
If you recall, there were charges made against the Chief Minister of Delhi about the renovation that lakhs of rupees were quote-unquote wasted. The curtain costs, for example, were hugely trumped up. The flooring, the ceiling, the kind of renovation that happened, all of it at the cost of the payment that the taxpayer was doing. The taxpayer's money was wasted. That was the charge that the Bharatiya Janata Party made. The Lieutenant Governor took a look at the allegations, subsequently sent the file to the Ministry of Home Affairs, and now we are told by sources that Ministry of Home Affairs has given the go-ahead to the CBI. That's the process that is usually followed. The centre sends the file to the DOPT. So based on that, the instruction has gone to CBI and they have registered a preliminary inquiry. So what does a PE really mean? A preliminary inquiry means that they're going to study all the relevant documents to come to a conclusion whether the case under Prevention of Corruption Act is made out. So is this a case of deliberately misusing the exchequer's money and indulging in corruption? Or is this under some other category? Or it could well be, an auditing issue. So is this a PC Act case or is this some other case? That is what CBI will be studying. PWD, the agency concerned for carrying out this renovation, has been asked to submit all papers, all files. So that those will be studied and a call will be taken if an FIR can be registered. If an FIR is registered, will it name the Aam Aadmi Party politicians? The BJP would ideally want the Chief Minister himself to be in the dock, so this is the CM's residence. But the CBI officials will have to study A, to see whether a PC Act case is made out, and B, if it is made out, then who is responsible for this loss to the exchequer.
Arunima, can I ask you to stay with us? We have the Aam Aadmi Party's response to this. Let's go to that very quickly. The Aam Aadmi Party is reacting to this. They're saying no matter how much investigation the BJP does, nothing came out earlier, nothing will come out even now. Let's go back to my colleague Arunima for context on the BJP's response, on the Aam Aadmi Party's response. Arunima, can you also just tell us, if you could just correct, for me, is it correct? All right, we do have to shift focus very quickly.
Srinivasan. And there's more good news. 14 years of you being at the helm at Federal Bank, And there's another piece of good news, and that Federal Bank has actually made it to the list of the great places to work as far as women specifically are concerned. So on all three fronts, a big congratulations to you, Mr. Srinivasan. How do you feel today?
Thank you, Shireen. Both excited and a little humbled by the occasion, right? I just cast my mind back to what we had in April 2021 at the peak of the pandemic at the Wagah border when we launched the Short of Life campaign. There was a sense, it was overwhelming, right? Because this occasion, at that time we were playing blind. We didn't know how to cure, at least in this there's a certain distance traveled. There it was completely blind. And today I just look back and I say the bank and partnering with you guys, we made, I think, meaningful progress. We touched over many lakhs of lives. And I do think today could be the start of something very special. When I heard you say that, I think we are poised at a great place. As a bank, from what you described, we are deeply committed to doing stuff that touches society in a real way, right? And I think the more recent developments of the stock doing well or these are just shot in the arm, but I would just set that aside. The most important thing is the last one that you mentioned. Our workforce, we have 43% of our workforce is women, right? And to be an organization that is, I think, the third year in running, a great place to work for women. And if you've seen that number that's come out, we are the only Indian born, brought up, raised in India organization in the top 10. The other 9 are organizations with great pedigree and from across the world. So I'm deeply excited that the bank's women power is at show. And coming to this topic, I think they bring a lot more empathy. And that feeds into the organization's culture of what we want to do for society. So in many ways, we are poised for something special, important, and I think far-reaching. So yes, can't
You'll be getting my CV by later tonight, Mr.
I am not willing to lose my job, so we will wait for that.
No, but on a serious note, let's talk about why we are here this evening. And I don't know again how many of you in this room know the numbers, but the numbers are staggering. The out-of-pocket spends of an average Indian on healthcare expenditure is significant. It's still about 50% of GDP. And I was just taking a look at the last released numbers, and there's a whole bunch of estimates that are done. But according to a journal that put out numbers more recently, it talks about how the out-of-pocket expenditure, both for inpatient as well as outpatient, on a monthly basis averages anywhere between 8 to 12,000 rupees, and that is a staggering sum of money. So almost works out to about more than 3 lakh rupees annually as far as the average citizen is concerned. And you know that there is an under-penetration as far as insurance is concerned in the country. And so it's a really important aspect to focus on because, if you can catch it early, if you can ensure that you get the right kind of care, you have access to the right kind of infrastructure, it perhaps could not just alleviate the health burden, but also the economic burden, Mr. Srinivasan.
Absolutely. In fact, I think one of the things as we get deeper into this program, and as a bank, we've spoken on a few occasions, even at the board level, I think we have to start investing in the adjacencies around this. This program will certainly help increase awareness, which is our sort of bigger aspiration. But we recognize that the caregivers and the support mechanism for anybody impacted, we've seen, in fact, one of our board members has almost mandated to construct facilities like a dorm or whatever in and around the cancer hospitals to help people who are supporting, because many of them literally live on the pavement or live by getting some dole or some support, people with not enough privileges. So I think the big development that we want to make in this is, apart from this whole journey of trying to promote awareness and support people, start investing in the adjacencies and help people in a way genuinely the caregiver is not affected massively, at least financially and physically, if they can support. So it is going to be quite a important development in this journey.
No, and you bring up a very important point, because a large part of the spends are actually on account of the non-medical aspects. So it's the food, the transportation, the lodging, as you spoke of, that actually adds to the economic burden for not just the patient but also for the caregivers, and that really is something that we need to focus on. And we're talking about huge geographical disparities in terms of just being able to access good quality infrastructure, healthcare infrastructure that people can access for specifically cancer treatment. So as part of this initiative and separate from this initiative as well, what have been some of the learnings in being able to build this out?
See, we think by a few ads and by a few messages, a large population will recognize it. At best, it's a fleeting thought for many. So one of the struggles is how do we get the grassroots really understand and work at that level. And the lesson we learned from the last round when we did the Sanjeevani one, all our blitz on channels and various platforms helped. But the real last mile when the guy went in a bus to the local village, literally carted them back to the site to tell them why it is, give them the incentives to take that shot. So I think the biggest exercise for all of us is going to be as we get united against cancer is how does the last mile actually go and test, and how do we support them once the test, God forbid, if they detect something, are we going to support them with some kind of financial support, assistance, simplifying, and then of course the treatment related. So this is a lot of work, you know it better, but I as in Federal is committed to making sure on the ground as much as possible using physical force, using technology, we want to try and bring more people really beyond one level above awareness, getting into the, the kind of effort to go and test. And, we have to do a lot there. Our employees have committed. We have actually launched now an employee program where we give voluntary day off for doing volunteering.
Okay.
So on specific days in the bank, they are taking time off to go into local communities and penetrate the message down. So it's not just headlining, but I hope we can reach out to the ground by truly the employees themselves. We about 15,000 of us go out and in the local communities, promote the awareness, but also encourage them to go into the testing. So it's a lot of work that needs to be done on the ground.
And many people would be curious to know that why is a bank deciding to support the cause of cancer? When we talk about the COVID pandemic and we talked about vaccination, it perhaps still made sense because you wanted the economy to restart, and one of the ways of being able to do that was to ensure that more and more people were vaccinated. But why the decision to actually join hands in the fight against cancer?
Yeah, we did think about it. See, the two big themes that we work on is one is healthcare and the other is skilling and education. On both counts, we are setting aside meaningful sums as the CSR expense of the bank and time by employees. Why cancer? You reeled out the statistics. I don't have to say more. It's truly debilitating, and we've seen almost everybody has some instance of somebody, friend, family has suffered this, and it brings a tear. I mean, most recently at the workplace, one of my colleagues, and husband and wife both work in the bank, it was remarkable to see how the lady who was affected, the guy stood by her, they literally fighting it through, raising a family through that. And the story that they related to me, you have to be really hard-hearted not to think about it twice over and say we have to reach out and do something, because many are suffering like this. So as a bank, the thought process, if you're focusing on healthcare as a big theme, and if this is something that's so important to India and to lives, why don't we spend a meaningful sum? I think our ESG is not just fancy terminology. The ESG, and this is not just my time, the bank has been quite resolutely supporting social causes for long periods of time. You may be aware, IFC, the World Bank, their largest investment in any organization in the world, the largest single organization is in Federal Bank. Right? Most recently, they went up to, they technically can go up to 9%. And they don't do things lightly. They are in it because they believe in our ESG practices. We believe in it. So we are quite committed to it, and I'm not saying this just on a platform. This is what we've been doing. The employee hours we're putting in are not light statements I make. Including me, we spend time. We spend time, we encourage people to spend time, we're paying them to go and do this in local communities in every fashion. So I think this is something fits in nicely, and I have to compliment you guys for bringing it up as a theme, and thank you for both our partners as well. So this can be quite big, and we have to do it across many years. I don't think we are committed to doing it just for 6 months. Rahul and me and others, when we've spoken, we said we must look at this at a longer period, but we have to test the waters and see what impact we're making, but we must commit to doing this in a manner that is just beyond advertisement. It has to reach lives, turn lives favorably, and hopefully we'll see many more smiling faces and people fought it and come over.
Oh, absolutely. I do hope that it will lead to at least a movement of hope, as well as bringing on board some solutions to the problem that we are faced with today.
And one more thing I'll just tell you, Shireen. I know we are maybe turning, it says time's up, but I'll just tell you, a thought that's occurring, and we are looking to create some, it sounds fancy, but some AI-based capability that is going to be under our CSR initiative, which will be maybe many months, years, I don't know, to help in simplifying detection on the ground in the remotest parts of the country. I don't know, it's a long, tall ambition, but we are committed to finding some solution around it and parking some money for that. And I'm sure like-minded individuals, institutions will co-work with us, but this is something that we are committed to doing. It may take a year out, but we are going to do that.
It requires collaboration, it requires deep partnerships, which is what we're hoping to do here today. We forged a very strong tripartite partnership, and we hope that we are going to be able to take this forward. It is called the Emperor of All Maladies, in the words of the Pulitzer Prize winning author Siddharth Mukherjee, and I think that it requires dedicated action, it requires collective and urgent intervention at this point in time. So Shyam Srinivasan, many thanks for joining us here this evening, for your generosity and for your support as always. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, this is only the start of this evening. We have plenty more coming up for you, so enjoy the evening, and as I said, this is really an opportunity for you to share your thoughts, your ideas, your suggestions with us, so please do keep them coming. Thank you very much.
Welcome everyone. Thanks a lot for staying with us. You're watching Plain Speak with me, Shivani Gupta. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar reiterated India's stance on the allegations levelled by Canada over the killing of Khalistani terrorist Hardeep Singh Nijjar and categorically rejected all of them again. Speaking at the Council for Foreign Relations in New York, the External Affairs Minister drew attention to the issue of organised crime